Okay, Oxford! Woo! Look at you all! This is amazing from all corners of the country. We've got people here from Oxford today. Woo, Oxford! Wales! The north of the country! The west! Anyone from abroad today that's come here? There's lots of people I've read online coming in from all over. This is amazing. Thank you so much. So here we are in Oxford, outside the university. So Oxford University, the home of education, the Oxford English Dictionary, the university, with very famous people that have been to this university. We've got the greats like Oscar Wilde, Stephen Hawking, J.R. Tolkien, and then we have Duncan Enright. Duncan Enright, who is the leader for transport and the chief of flower pots in Oxford. Duncan Enright, the favourite for the blue rinses here in Oxford, and may I say, our pound shop Tony Blackburn. However, jokes aside, we have all come together today. We are not on the right or the far right. We are on the right side of history. We are on the right side of history, and we are here because we all know it's the right thing to do, to stand up together to save our rights that are under attack here in Oxford and all around the country where these 15-minute or 20-minute cities are being announced. And may I say, I'm looking round at you today. Look at how diverse we all are. We are every people here today. We are from every ethnic background. We are men, women, every sex, every gender, every nationality, and from different parts of the country. And we are putting aside all those differences, all those identities they keep pinning on us to divide us. Today we say, no, you're not going to divide us. We stand united today and together as we peacefully protest and march here in Oxford. So we're going to have a peaceful, lawful protest today. We've got some amazing speakers lined up for you today. And I'm now going to hand over to Fiona. A round of applause for Fiona.
I'm not going to say very much, guys, but I just think everyone should give Debbie a round of applause for working really hard to organise today. Debbie's been supported by some amazing teams of people. So another round of applause for the Unite for Freedom team. We got Nacho, we got Kelly, we got Louise Cleffield from Save Our Rights that have all worked together. So can we keep clapping, guys, for these people? We're also supported by British Lions for Freedom, which is an amazing outreach group. So a massive round of applause for Damon and team. I mean, just to hit the nail there, I think Debbie mentioned, we are peaceful, we are non-partisan. We do have some agitators that have announced that they intend to agitate today. So just again to reiterate, we need to remain peaceful. We're freedom lovers. We are warriors, we are fighters, but we're the most united group in history. So give yourselves a round of applause for making today what it is. Now, getting straight into the speakers, because we've got a vast range of speakers today, trusting the real science. But first of all, there's a man who's not shy. He is quite opinionated, and I quite like him myself. He ran for London Mayor. Can everyone please make some noise for Lawrence Fox?
Hi guys, lovely to see so many of you out here today. Let's be clear, this is not about science, it's not about data, it isn't about clean air, isn't about the environment, it's about power and control over you. Every single day we have an opportunity to further the cause of freedom and to make the world a better place than before for our children. Freedom to speak, freedom to move, freedom to transact, freedom to go where you want, freedom to travel, freedom of bodily autonomy, and every single day we should be making steps towards freedom. We have seen in these last years how quickly simple freedoms can be taken away and the catastrophic damage caused when society is dominated by the fearful. And any step we take in the other direction, we take a step towards control and tyranny, and a step away from freedom. So every single day that we don't fight for our fundamental human right to be left alone to pursue our business is a betrayal of our children's future and a betrayal of freedom. And we will fight every single day towards freedom. Freedom!
Massive round of applause for Lawrence Fox of GB News. Whoops. Anyway, our next speaker, he's fairly political, he knows his politics, and he's founder of the Freedom Alliance. Please make a round of applause for Jonathan Tilt.
Hi everyone, hi, thanks Debbie, thanks Fiona for organising this incredible turnout and brilliant to see these vast numbers here today. It's slightly absurd and obscene that I'm stood here in Oxford defending our rights, your rights, to move around within the city. We're not talking about freedom of movement between nations here, we're talking within a city or a town. I don't particularly want to be here doing this today. I'd sooner be out cycling, but it's a weird and strange world that we've moved into, one where that we have to stand up and, as Lawrence was saying, defend these fundamental rights. These rights belong to us. They don't belong to the state. We haven't given freedom of speech, freedom of movement, freedom of association, and freedom to run your own business. We haven't handed these over to the state for them to hand them back to us if we behave ourselves and comply with whatever the current absurd narrative is. Thanks. We're in a war here. We're in a war against globalist psychopaths, and let's not pretend otherwise. But it is a war that we can and we will win. If we avoid the twin perils of ego and apathy, and the speakers here today and the crowd here today suggest that we're starting to do quite well on both of those fronts. If we can avoid those twin perils, we can win this war because our enemies are panicking. And they're panicking because their current system of control, their current system of enslaving us, debt-based money, is collapsing around their ears. And that I firmly believe is why we're at where we're at. That system, the inflation that comes at the end of empires as money dies, they've created too much money, they've pushed interest rates down, trapped everybody in debt, and then the interest rates go back up and they impoverish everybody. As that system dies, we have the opportunity to move to a better system, a freer system, and a more independent system. They're trying to move us towards one of digital control. Now this is brilliant day out, it's great that everybody's here, the numbers are here, but this has to be so much more than one day out. We desperately need you to go back to your towns, to your villages, to your counties, to your cities, and take back control in a proper and meaningful way. Not the empty slogan that was used a few years ago, but to actually take back control. We need you to start getting onto and getting into these councils to remove the Duncan Enrights of this world. We need to start to get people elected through the freedom parties, through the thing I'm running now, which is the Vote Freedom Project. But we need you all out of your comfort zones, going back and getting one or two people on each of these councils and stopping and frustrating this nonsense. And if we do that, we can win this war. I firmly believe that. We can stop the 5G rollout. We can stop their use of councils to enact whatever bit of tyranny they're planning next, and we can start to go onto the front foot and take the initiative. But that's not half a dozen people stood up here on the platform doing that. That's each and every one of you. We need thousands of people. It's 19,000 councillors in this country. We need people standing and removing those corrupt and captured councillors. And just to reiterate what Debbie said at the start, we have to remain an inclusive movement. We're across all cultures, all communities, all identities. Inclusion has been captured by the other side, but we have got to, because they are going to try, when the crisis comes, and the crisis is coming, they are going to try and get us to turn on each other, as they always do. And we really, please, 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 have got to avoid doing that. Because if we stand united, if we stand and fight for humanity, we can do this, and I genuinely believe we can win the war against digital slavery and medical tyranny. And we're still fighting the medical tyranny battle. Obviously, 15-minute cities is where it's at the minute, but the pandemic treaty is still sat there waiting to be slipped through Parliament under cover of darkness. So we have to fight on all fronts, and whatever front they come at us with next. So, thanks for listening, and go back to your communities and fight.
Can I just remind people as well, we do have an open mic at the end of this. We have a community event, you're going to have some music, and there is an open mic for people that want to speak and say a few words. We just want to get it on the march and make some noise through Oxford before that happens. So right at the end, we'll have the opportunity for people to come and ask some questions and speak on the topic if they want to. But next we have a man who is an academic and a graduate of the University of Oxford. He's actually an ambassador for Bahrain and Syria, and he's been critical within the movement of the West into the Middle East. So everyone, can you please make some noise for Peter Ford?
Thank you. Yeah, my main concern has been campaigning for peace. But I've also been on the barricades during the COVID wars, alongside Piers Corbyn, who I'm pleased to see is with us today. And this is part of a war as well. Oxford is one of the new battlefronts as the establishment fight against people, ordinary people, to take away our freedoms. Oxford is a new front in the war that the establishment is waging against ordinary people, taking away our freedoms. And that is the message that we hear today. It's not a seminar. You all know why you're here, but it will be interesting to hear perhaps from later speakers about some of the issues that the authorities don't want to discuss. No politician will stand up and debate the case for 15-minute cities. In fact, there's no question to which 15-minute cities are the answer. They try to make out that the issue is pollution or congestion, but congestion is a problem that basically solves itself. And pollution, well, is way, way less than it was 10, 15 years ago. The authorities try to play down the extent to which these traffic restrictions are about climate lockdowns, but that is what they really are. On the BBC, and I believe the BBC are with us today, their propagandizer-in-chief, the high priest of warmism, Justin Rowlatt. I saw him earlier, so let's give a rousing welcome to Justin Rowlatt. The BBC Newsnight programme the other night carried a feature that attempted to smear opponents of traffic restrictions in Oxford and elsewhere. Kirsty Woke, or Kirsty Walk, as she prefers to call herself, Kirsty Woke, tried to make out that it was about pollution and congestion, but then she let the cat out of the bag. She said, but we have to have these restrictions, don't we? Because we've only got 10 or 20 years. We've only got 10 or 20 years before Thermageddon. This is what it is really about. A series of microaggressions on our freedoms leading to climate lockdowns and any other restrictions that the establishment can think of. But they try to make out that we are cranks. That same Newsnight program featured a 3-second segment of Piers Corbyn. But who is the crank here? Who is deluded? The person like Kirsty Woke, who thinks that we're 10 or 20 years away from Thermageddon, or the qualified astrophysicist, which is Piers Corbyn, who has debunked much of the junk science around warmism, and who has led the campaign with his ULEZ Stop Can't Pay Won't Pay campaign in London, and helped to be first and foremost in putting this issue on the national agenda. But this whole thing about 15-minute cities is a sort of cult. It has all the trappings of a cult. These people hark back to a golden age when people didn't move around very much, when villains had to have permission from the master to move about the city, when there were toll gates everywhere in medieval cities like Oxford. This was a period when people went in fear of Armageddon, only now it's Thermageddon. So today we're going to send a strong message to authority, be it national or local. And by the way, there is no choice, no political choice. Oxford County Council, governing coalition of eco-Labour, liberal autocrats, and eat your greens. Green, greener or greenest. Eco-Labour, liberal autocrats, and eat your greens. But there is no choice. What if I want brown? There is no one to represent me, no one to speak up for me, certainly not the wishy-washy Tories who are just a paler shade of green. So today we send a rousing message to them all. We are the street, we are the people, and you know what you can do with your zones. Shove your zones, shove your zones. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker, she's a very young lady, and she's our Child Freedom Ambassador. Now, I want everyone to give a really, really warm welcome to Jasmine.
Hello everyone. It is wonderful to see you all here today. I know many of you have travelled a long way to be here, and I just want to thank you all for coming. And I'd like to thank the organisers for the work they have put into organising this meeting here in Oxford today. I could stand here and say more or less what other people are going to say about the effect of these 15-minute neighbourhoods, soon to become digital ID facial recognition zones. We are watching the beginnings of the Chinification of Europe in preparation of the social credit system. Please raise your hands if you are aware that we live under what is called the British Constitution. If you are aware of that, please raise your hands. Okay, you can put them down now. And again, raise your hands if you are aware that we live under what is called... No. Okay, and again, raise your hands if you understand the meaning of constitutional law. I'm going to be a lawyer when I grow up, so I need to know all this stuff. As I understand it, under constitutional law, it is we, that is you and me, the ordinary folk, the corner shop owner, the truck driver, the nurse, the doctor. It is we, the common people, who wield the power and authority. Is that not true? Am I wrong? No, I am not. Okay, so the officials in City Council have to do what we the people want. We the people are not slaves to these officials, and they are not our masters. Is that correct, or am I wrong? The MP, Andrew Bridgen, last month said that the politicians work for us, not the other way round. He said that as he was kicked out of government by the corrupt politicians who have hijacked our government buildings. I have no doubt that more than 50% of these politicians are secretly in favour of the World Economic Forum and their plans to enslave us in their digital nightmare. Starting with their digital ID system, which will give them total control over your bank accounts and whether or not you can access your money. Providing you are a good slave and allow yourself to be experimented on with their Frankenstein injections, I'm sure your money will be okay. Well, for as long as you live, anyways. I have no doubt about that. But if you dare try to stand up for your fundamental rights and freedoms, you will be punished. I have no doubt about that either. And the Oxford City officials are building this prison for themselves. How dumb is that? It's laughable that this idea will cut down on pollution. If, for example, you work a couple of zones away, you will now be expected to go out of town to a ring road, drive round the ring road and then come back into town. So how can it possibly be about pollution? Rather than cutting across the short way, a person now has to spend twice as much money on fuel and drive the long way round the city and cause twice as much pollution. And that will have a big negative impact on my carbon footprint tracker. So if I want to have good carbon score, it will mean stay home, don't go anywhere. You can see where this is heading, can't you? In a recent poll, it was claimed that 2/3 of the British people thought our government was corrupt. I think it's way, way more than 2/3. The greedy people have stolen our democracy and are now calling themselves politicians. And they have turned our democracy and our constitution into a tyranny. So what now? Some people ask me, how would you suggest we solve the problems of the world? And I ask, what problems? And they come out with a long list of things from homelessness to starvation, to wars, to energy crisis. And I have to stop them and say, look, the world has only got one single problem. If you deal with this one problem, all others will vanish. And they ask me, so what is it? And I tell them, you must deal with the greedy people. These greedy people are evil and are the one single cause of all the suffering on planet Earth. And until you deal with these evil, greedy people, things can and will only get much worse. The imposter, currently squatting in number 10, recently said that transparency was most important. And yet when asked about his £500 million investment in Moderna vaccines, he declined to answer. So clearly we live in a tyranny. It's very simple, really. In a democracy, the people know everything about the government. But Rishi Sunak has pointed out to us that it doesn't work like that anymore. The transparency he talks about is one of tyranny where they, the greedy people, know everything about us, but we know little about them. The greedy people have amassed personal fortunes which, because they are the greedy people, they keep to themselves. They have stolen the financial resources of the world from all the people to themselves. In my world, my utopia, the leader would be a champion of love and peace and would be hailed as a king, not for the type of blood in his body, but for what he did for the people of his country, i.e. increasing the wealth and quality of life and keeping peace with other nations. For us, the normies, the common folk, we the people, they would be our champions. For example, Rishi Sunak and wife have control of £370 billion. In my world, it would be a crime for any person to keep or have to themselves at their own personal disposal, personal access to such a vast amount of the world's money supply. It would be illegal. In my world, there would be no such thing as a billionaire. It would never be acceptable for one family to store or hoard vast amounts of personal wealth in offshore bank accounts. It would be a major crime to do so. Imagine it. All the problems in the UK, the homelessness, the hunger, the NHS, the energy crisis, all of the problems could be solved very quickly if Rishi Sunak recycled some of his fortune back to the people he took it from. So you tell me, who does he care for? Come on, shout your answers out! I heard a couple of things actually, but two things. I heard two things there. Nobody and himself. Well, there you go. You've answered the question. It's not complicated. And he would still be a billionaire. These people are criminals in my book and definitely should not be in our government. And the people urgently need to right this wrong. My advice to the British people is, do not trust this person to tell you the truth. He is a greedy person and only has his own selfish interests at heart. His pals at the World Economic Forum are quite openly calling us, we, the people, useless eaters and a waste of resources, adding they do not need the vast majority of us. They don't need us. Well, quite honestly, I think the whole of humanity would be much happier and much better off without them crazy lunatics. We don't need them, and we don't want them. As long as Klaus Schwab is free, no one is safe. Then there are the foolish people. These are the ones who are helping to build their own prison and the prisons that their children will have to spend their whole lives within, being watched as digital slaves and tracked 24 hours, every second of their life where privacy will soon become incomprehensible. I'm speaking about those well-paid officials at Oxford City Council who think they have the right to force their madness on the rest of us. And then there's the destruction of local small businesses. Businesses that depend on the free flow of traffic and the freedom of the people to move around and go about their lives freely as they choose, in order for that small business to survive. I could talk about the ignorance of these investors in the creation of these prison systems. Large corporations such as Lloyd's Bank and organisations who are acting in shameful and ungodly ways through ignorance and through corruption. Organisations such as the Church of England, who I am sure would have no part in this if they knew where it was all leading. Again, we see the blind leading the blind. All I can think of saying is, oh my God. Do any of you know what is fast approaching? Let's say my friend lives in Zone 3 and I'm in Zone 1. If, for example, I went to my friend's house in Zone 3, my parents normally come and pick me up in their car. It only takes 10 minutes. So does that mean that they would have to go round the ring road and back into town again? If my mum or dad had to drive round the ring road, it would take 30 minutes, causing much more pollution and leaving a much bigger carbon footprint. They will say, you can walk home. Would that be safe for me to walk home? Me as a 12-year-old walking home in the dark alone. Is that really going to be safe? Then they will say, oh, don't worry about that. We've already thought of that. You'll be safe. We will have 1,000 cameras on the streets following you and tracking you all the way home. Oh, just remember, it's for your safety. What? Are you serious? Do you really think I want to be watched every second of the day? Are you serious? Thousands of cameras tracking my every move until I get home. At this point, I have to ask, is my safety that important to me that I want to be followed by cameras all the way home? Or do I prefer to have freedom than privacy? And also, for your information, I still wouldn't feel safe. No amount of cameras is going to stop someone who wants to attack me. I want to be safe, but not to the extent that I am prepared to give up my freedom and my privacy to have it. Anyone who gives up their freedom for safety deserves neither. As a 12-year-old, I am really concerned about my future. And to Klaus Schwab, I say this. How dare you! How dare you steal my childhood and my future, and the future of all children by enslaving us in your crazy digital surveillance prison. We all know where this is leading, and by the way, Klaus, just for your information, I still think you're a complete nutcase. How dare you? Who do you think you are? To me, you are no different from a villain in a James Bond movie, attempting to hold the world hostage in your crazy transhumanist dystopia. And for what? To make more money? More profit? Is there truly any amount of wealth that will satisfy your greed? So people, listen. Make no mistake. These are the first steps of a dystopian reality called 15-minute neighborhoods. From a small seed, a huge tree can grow. Do you know yesterday the temperature was 7 degrees, but today it is 12 degrees? The greedy people are claiming that the zones are to do with climate change. Over the last few decades, the greedy people have managed to convince the people of the world that if the temperature goes up by 1 single degree, 1 degree, that all life will become extinct. How dumb have you got to be to believe that? That's a story created by fake scientists and the greedy people, and there is not a shred of truth in any of it. Recycling our waste is a good idea to save on resources and materials and to cut down on waste, but it has absolutely nothing to do with saving the planet. Climate change is being used to control us, to nudge us in the direction the greedy people want us to go. The truth is that the greedy people want total control over everything we do, everything we think, and everything we say. And they intend to achieve it by convincing everyone that climate change is a real danger, when actually there is no truth in that statement. In the meantime, I would advise the residents of Oxford demand an independent investigation into how the city officials got the figures, claiming that most people were in favour of these infringements on your rights to travel freely. You must demand an investigation in the UK. Our government has been hijacked by greedy and selfish imposters posing as politicians. They believe they are better than us and masters over us. And until this problem is effectively dealt with, the tyranny will continue. Thank you.